I'm John Shelby with Continuant. Welcome to the show. I'm joined today with Sean Wilson of Microsoft. Sean, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Sean Wilson. I'm a solutions architect within Microsoft Center of Excellence for Microsoft 365, focusing on intelligent communications.
Very good. And what is intelligent communications, and how is it different from what we understand, or what used to be unified communications?
Sure. So if you think about the progression of communications and how we traditionally went from what was originally, analog phones all the way up to today where, you've got integrated voice, video, and web conferencing in a single ecosystem, what we would call unified communications. Intelligent communications gives you the ability to take some of the key aspects from the cloud and using aspects of machine learning as well as paired with cognitive services and even the Microsoft Graph specifically to Teams that will help you glean insights into how people work and be able to present you with instances within that communication that are more streamlined, more efficient.
Good. What role does Microsoft play in intelligent communications, or IC?
Sure. So really, Microsoft has been in the unified communication space for a number of years, starting back with LCS, or Live Communication Server, all the way through Link and Skype for Business. And now that we've actually are making this transition to Microsoft Teams, we're really taking that unified communications to another level with intelligent communications. And what we're doing is we're incorporating the entire Office 365 experience into how people are going to work and communicate together. So if you think about everybody works together to collaborate on something, well, once you collaborate on something, you got to meet about it, right?
Yeah.
No one creates stuff in a vacuum.
Right.
So what Microsoft's doing with Microsoft Teams is we're incorporating those collaboration elements of Exchange and Office groups and SharePoint integrated with the rich telecommunications capabilities of voice, video, and web conferencing, and integrating that into a single platform with Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, and so I've been in the voice side of this business now for 23 years, and it's funny, to me, from my perspective, it seems that we've gone through these different phases of what the next big thing was, and whether it was CTI or unified communications or whatever it was, but none of them really ever seemed to take hold. The difference, from our perspective, we seem to be seeing on IC is a far more rapid and real user adoption level, right? So everybody kind of talked about unified communications, but from a practical application standpoint, people weren't really using it. And we're seeing IC kind of really change that dynamic, right?
Well, and IC is, and even Teams is an all-up that's really, I like to say that the intelligent communications accelerates collaboration, right? So one of the big pieces with that we're seeing is the reason adoption's there is because Word, PowerPoint, Excel are all native, and when that's backed by Office 365 for people's productivity, they're automatically creating together better, faster, and then you pair that with the integrated voice and video and presence elements within Teams, you get a richer experience, which means people want to use it because they can get stuff done faster and more efficient.
It's almost hard not to collaborate, right? Because everything's just right in front.
It's a single pane of glass, so to speak, of your collaboration and communications.
Yeah, and you mentioned Teams. What kind of innovations are occurring as a result of Teams or driving Teams?
So there's there's a whole bunch of innovations. I can start actually a little bit on the intelligent communications piece or the voice and video elements. So one of the biggest pieces about going to Microsoft Teams is that we have been able to design the next generation backend based on the Skype infrastructure that we've learned. And so what we've done is we've taken this next generation cloud-born infrastructure that's designed to create the best experience possible for all types of users, not just one sitting on a corporate WAN or somebody that happens to be on a mobile device where you've got different applications that are good for those. Ours is designed to reach all sorts of users, regardless of if you're on a managed network or if you're sitting on an internet hotspot in a coffee shop. And so the ability to be prevalent on mobile devices as well as having the same experience on my PC as a large format screen is really important for me to be able to collaborate. Another piece to this though is because it's built on the Office 365 and Microsoft backbone, we've been able to take advantage of the Microsoft's media delivery network. If you think about it, Microsoft has 1.8 million miles of fiber that interconnects its network around the world. And so with that and our internet peering points and the learnings we gleaned from our Skype network that we acquired, that does over 3 billion minutes of voice and video a day, we really learned how to be super efficient in that. Some of the other innovations are really the integration of those APIs and bots and connectors that really tie into that experience. But with Office 365 and Microsoft Graph as the substrate for all of the inner networkings and inner workings, what it does is it means that you're not worrying about the technology and you're just getting work done.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and you know, we got a lot of customers moving from kind of more legacy on-premise solutions looking to the cloud. I think big driver there, right, is that you have such a concentration of power and R&D centralized that gets pushed out all at the same time, right? So customers aren't having to worry about updating this, updating that, and all the other garbage they have to do.
Yeah, so you know, it's one of the beautiful things about moving to the cloud and with Office 365 is we got that big network we were talking about. But what you also have is you have a financially backed SLA tied to it. So therefore, you know, taking 8 hours on a Saturday to patch servers because you've got a whole bunch of pools to do doesn't happen anymore. And so you're able to take advantage of that. You're also, because it's the cloud, it's always fresh. You're ensuring that you have the most up-to-date bits are available, and especially with Teams. Teams is the way that we deliver it through the web-based apps that it is that you will continue to get the updates to make sure that you have the freshest client at all times.
Great, yeah. Well, so if we've been talking about Teams, if somebody's moving to Teams or looking at adoption for Teams, how do you help ensure that adoption's successful, right? I mean, from our experience, going back years, that's really what drives the whole thing, right? If you don't have users using the application, it just doesn't work.
So really, if you think about it, there's a framework that you should kind of follow. If you think of it as the old plan, deploy, operate that lived in on-premises for ITIL, right? But if you think about how it is, planning to the roadmap and the journey of the personas. So as I'm working with you guys on is how we build out that planning session to help customers that are in Skype for Business or in some form of unified communications, aligning their personas with their voice and video workloads, pairing those also with what the modalities and coexistence they need to do at the same time is really going to help you from the technical deployment piece. There's an underlying that, and that's the adoption or change management pieces. And that's going to be fundamental because you're changing not only the way people are working, because where I used to go to an email or I'd go to a SharePoint site or I might have an IM, it's now all integrated into that experience. And so some of the key things are really looking at that adoption and change management capabilities and services that help customers on that journey. Right? So are you teaching them how to do voice and video best? Are you able to work with the customer to develop the right device strategy for their meeting rooms, their desks, based on those personas? So if we were to take an example of a customer that has a very large conference room basis for the way that they work, you'd have to take into account the different devices and looking to partners like Continuent that can really solve the device piece is another major component of adoption. If technology gets in the way, people won't use it.
Right. And that's kind of from our perspective as a partner, right, and working with you through this incubation process. One of the things that's exciting to me is what the value that we are able to provide, right, by doing a specialized solution from a device perspective, right? Being able to look at what customers need specifically from a video device standpoint or video room standpoint or huddle space or whatever it might be. It's interesting to me the way that Microsoft's put that ecosystem together. What does that look like from your perspective, and particularly as a partner, how we're working together to create that synergy?
Excellent, yeah. So if you think about it, Microsoft has always embraced, outside of our core software technologies, we've really embraced a partner ecosystem for all types of devices, from headsets to room systems to whatever it might be. And the key with that is really aligning what we call partner-to-partner motions, where we have these device partners that really are aligned with our systems integrators and our managed service providers that can provide that level of service, because we want our customers to have best in breed not necessarily what we can build, right? So if I can go to a SBC provider, or I can go to a headset manufacturer or video rooms integration team, then those key pieces that partner well bring best of breed to support our solution.
Sure, yeah, and even from an application standpoint, right? Being able to plug in different contact center technologies, a lot of the monitoring tools we're looking at, the vector pieces and so forth, to really provide that backbone. You know, one of the things that has really driven us from an adoption standpoint, again, is we're drilling down to focusing on a user experience, and from our perspective, again, with teams, I think it becomes easier to drive a successful user experience. It really seems like it was built, more purpose-built that way than a lot of things we've seen.
Yep.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, if you think of it, it really was purpose-built from the ground up. You know, it has the core components to Office 365 between Groups, Exchange, and SharePoint. But the media engine behind it within the Next Generation Core was all built net new to really support teams. And the pieces that are most important as we look at that is that we wanted to understand what the user journey was from start to finish.
Sure.
We didn't start with an on-premises product that we moved to the cloud. We now started with a cloud-born, purpose-built solution.
Yeah, so what, and we've been kind of talking about that journey, what's the importance of really getting that journey built, planned properly, right, for deployment? I mean, how does that impact things in the long run?
Well, you know, it's a lot like planning a trip to Vegas.
Sure.
Right? So you want to go from here to Vegas, you're in Fife, and you want to go to Vegas. I can say I'm going to Vegas, but A and B is not a journey. So I need to plan it, and I can plan it appropriately, so I take into account things like weather and where I'm going to stay and things like that. It's the same concept when you take into planning a technology migration. You know, 70% of change efforts fail because they're not properly managed and user expectations aren't set. And so being very diligent to align your personas, your workloads, the way that you want to take the impacts of the existing infrastructure and apply it to what the new journey is. And part of that's also building that roadmap at the customer's pace. Right. So one of the things that Microsoft has really focused on is enabling that journey through our hybrid, right? Through our hybrid solution. So the fact that, you know, somebody might be Skype for Business Server today, we want them to eventually become Teams, 100%, but we give them that path through Skype for Business Online and then to Teams, right? And so as you think about the importance of planning that journey, identifying a key partner, similar to yourselves, that are working with customers on how to get from A to B and all the iterative steps, and being their thought leader in that is absolutely paramount.
And you mentioned the personas, and they really matter, right? Because there's people that may be ready right now, but based on user types, different functions they need, we need to move them down the roadmap a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
So
and again, making sure you get those in the right areas. You don't want a user that's expecting one thing to not get it.
Totally, or not even expecting. Needing, requiring, right? A great example for that is it's not only just your user personas, right? It's also the cohorts that they live as part of, right? So, you know, you might have an admin that's part of a sales organization. She's got to be part of the sales cohort, but she's part of a different persona. So you have to take a look at both of those and then plan accordingly and making sure that you're identifying those correctly.
Well, and I think a big part where you come in or where we come in as a partner, as customers identify those personas, it's making sure they identify them correctly, right? I mean, to your example, sales admin isn't really an admin persona. They're a sales persona.
But they still have attributes as an admin.
Right.
So if you think about it, we go back, a salesperson's going to be on the phone all day long, right? So that's one persona, but an admin needs to be able to manage inbound calls for multiples, right? So very different kind of, they take almost two personas, but they're part of a single cohort.
Yeah, no doubt. Interesting. Hey, Sean, thanks for joining today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
You bet. Thanks. And thanks for joining us out there today, and we look forward to talking to you next time.